the Football Pod on Off the Ball in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Hashtag the toughest.
Hello there, and you're very welcome along to episode 14 of the Football Pod. True on goal, 20 seconds to go. One-on-one with the keeper. James O'Donoghue, what are you doing if you're in Ryan O'Toole's position? James O'Donoghue, the man who's called for a ban on fisted points.
I do call for a ban on fisted points, and I'm still sticking by that.
Answer the question.
How much entertainment did that play give us?
Answer the question. What would you have done in that position?
Well, seeing as I'm 28 years of age now, I'm not a youngster like O'Toole.
Experienced, mature player.
Exactly, and I have got a lot of fuckings out of it and a lot of angry people looking at me for making the wrong decision. I, at this stage of my life, would have fisted it over the bar.
Whoa!
And I am actually embarrassed to say that. I am embarrassed to say that, but I would have.
Your credibility is just gone now. Everything you've said in the last 18 months.
I can't believe that.
Contradicting myself. No,
we've got a campaign going.
Definitely, the last thing I would have done is go for it myself, down low bottom corner. But if you look at the footage, just as he's running in, as he collects the hand pass, he's running in on Morgan. Morgan doesn't set himself for a goal chance at all. Morgan nearly runs around the back of the goal to get the tee and the ball to take the kick out because he thinks he's going to fist it over the bar.
We'll have to show the image.
Morgan should have saved that.
Share the image. He's not expecting, and then he sees O'Toole kind of line up, and he goes, "This fella's going to shoot it," and he's too late to react. And
he takes it very early,
lads. So he takes a third option. I'd have fisted it over. Second option would have been fisted back post for a palm in.
That was
Gallagher's at the back post.
I think should be gone, but they're the first two, and the third option would be to do what he did, but he picked the right one. In fairness, to him.
Paddy, does he get a slap on the wrist? Does he get a slap on the wrist in the Dublin dressing room?
No, because it went in. But I tell you what, I was screaming at the telly to square at the Gallagher at the back post. That was all day. It was a palm goal. I'd have fisted it over because I was a boring bastard when I played. But he's lucky it goes in.
Yeah,
I think he lashes it with his laces. It's not hard. He's not like it's
right
not
leg as well. He takes like the angle completely away from
the ball like Derek Hannivan's goal. He gives the keeper the eyes. He swipes at this, and I think Morgan should save it. It's straight at Morgan, and it goes through his legs. He will be raging that ball goes in.
Should have said.
The mentality to go for it. What a finish to! I think that was one of the best games I've seen.
Go on, Paddy. How good?
Years.
How good?
Honestly, in 5 years, the provincial championships get an awful lot of stick. But I had the misfortune of watching the Fermanagh Derry game on Saturday night. So I was losing the will to live, and that game, it was a brilliant game. And the last 20 minutes, when they got rid of the sweepers and it was just score for score, it was looking like extra time. He gets through. I genuinely was screaming, you've got to square that to Gallagher, and it's a palm goal, and it's game over as well. I agree with Jimmy. It's probably the last thing he should do, but he nails it. And I mean, what a moment.
Unbelievable.
For him. Young Flo. Was that his championship debut?
Championship debut, yeah. He's 23, I think.
Championship debut. And bangs one in.
Just to say,
best part about it was the celebration. He says, money.
He had a few quid on himself. There's something on there. I love that. I was like, God, is he doing the money thing?
On his debut, he was only one step away from taking the shirt off and putting it over his head.
Magic. He actually,
a beautiful moment.
Aisling O'Reilly spoke to him for Off the Ball after the game, and I was waiting to hear what he had to say, and she was like, what was going through your head?
Nothing, I think. I think, go on.
Well, what he said was, he goes, I just made my mind up. I'm putting the two hands in this, and I'm going to drive it, and whatever happens, happens. He said it was a one-on-one. By God, it was not a one-on-one. Monroe had one side of the goals covered. It was Morgan had the other covered. It was just magic.
A magical moment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a brilliant moment.
And that's why the hand pass over the bar rule, it does dampen down so much excitement.
Ban the fisted point.
Because if you think about it, right, if Morgan made a great save there, how much we'd be celebrating Morgan, or how much we'd be seeing his skills, or we saw that finish and how skillful that finish was. Like, we're being robbed of unbelievable play by taking a fisted point. And sometimes, when you look at the 80s and you see the lads, they're throwing goal, and next thing they hand pass it into the top corner.
Was a joke.
Yeah.
And you're going, how is that still happening? We'll be looking back at the hand pass point, saying the same thing.
If you look, remember a few minutes before that, Darren McCurry puts across a
beauty,
a David Beckham-esque cross to Conn Kilpatrick.
No, Kennedy.
No, it was Kilpatrick.
It was Kilpatrick. I thought it was Kennedy.
Sorry. Listen, I accept your apology. And Conn Kilpatrick fisted over, which is the right thing to do. Again, I was like, well played, Con. And me, a boring bastard.
He looked
but it would have been beautiful. He had to go for goal. I agree with you, Jim. I agree with you.
Was Matty Donnelly through as well? He fisted it over. Do you remember Donnelly kicked it? Yeah, different maybe.
That was more on than O'Toole's one.
The goal.
He would have had to, the goal was more on. I think,
Jimmy, Tyrone, they'd had a bad run in that third quarter and they were kicking wide. Matty Donnelly kicks a bad wide, McCurry does. They were all over the shop. And again, I was like, Matty Donnelly, that's a very wise decision. Fisted over, scoreboard ticking over.
I know, but it goes.
Like, it's rich of me to give out about this because I think I scored more fisted points than kicked points in my entire career. But
you scored some beauties off the right. I think you only have one goal though in championship football, right?
Oh, it was a spectacular playmaker.
I could understand why you would fist that chance over the bar. I have to admit, I am horrified to think that the likes of James O'Donoghue was so broken by Gaelic football that 1-on-1 / 2-on-2 in the last minute that you would have fisted that ball over the bar.
Do you know what it was as well? Like, the fact that they were a point down. Like, it's easier to go for goal if it's level. You're going to go, right, we have a second chance here anyway. But
I can't believe you, James.
But the thing is, from where he was...
You hung over Jimmy or something.
He was out wide. He was out wide. I would have...
He spent the weekend in A&E.
But the thing is, if he did fist it over, they'd have been beaten because Tyrone came down the field and had two plays to get a score. So they would have worked a point. They would have been beaten by a point. Like, the game was so open at that stage that he almost, looking back, he had to get a goal out of it. Now, if he wanted a goal, the better play probably was to fist it across the square, but unbelievable moment, and then that hand passing over.
Credit, what a finish, but what a brilliant second half. Tyrone had some spectacular play in the first half and were looking very, 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 very good. But what a game! Like, it was brilliant to see. I was worried that the provincial championships would throw up a lot of shite, to be honest. And even last week we spoke about this. I didn't expect this game to be a classic, the way the two teams would set up. But it's the same. If you remember, we remember chatting about the Derry Dublin game in the league up in Celtic Park, where Derry were very, very, very passive in the first half, sitting off, and then they just throw caution to the wind. Very similar to what Monaghan did yesterday, particularly after Darren Hughes went off and they don't have the sweeper anymore, and they just go at it. And it just makes for, when football is played like that final quarter of that game, it is amazing to watch.
Yeah.
On the edge of the seat. But so many of the games are not like that. They are not like that. And we'll see this weekend, cagey affairs. But there's a reason that game stood out yesterday, because I think the technical quality was very good from both teams, even in the first half, even though Monaghan were kind of hanging on. But the quality of the play and then the excitement down the final stretch was what a game.
Could it also be because, and you're saying the provincials, right? Could it be because that it actually doesn't matter that much anymore because this has secured their place in the round robin? Tyrone and Monaghan, regardless of who won there, were going to be third seeds either way, unless you get to the Ulster final.
So, Tommy,
and Galway Roscommon are still third seeds if they lose at the weekend.
I don't think that's it, because Monaghan set up unbelievably cagey as well in the first half.
Early doors, yeah.
You know, and how the game developed. Genuinely, Darren Hughes' injury, he was their sweeper. They put Conor McCarthy back, who's naturally an attacker. Just the instances in the game nearly forced Monaghan's hand to come out a bit, and the fact that they were behind. Like, Tyrone were playing some beautiful stuff in the first half. Second half, there's big issues with, they just lose complete control of that game. But I don't think Monaghan were throwing caution to the wind because it was like, oh, well, we're grand. It's the Ulster Championship. We know we have a second chance. I think it was literally just the dynamics of the game, the couple of injuries and how it was panning out, that they just had to go for it. And that freed it up. But in terms of what we've seen, the first 2 weeks of championship, we've had New York winning on penalties. Unbelievable for the Connacht Championship. The Rossies upsetting Mayo and Castlebar. And then we have the Monaghan-Tyrone game. Incredible. So the provincial championships, they get a lot of stick, probably behind the national leagues and definitely behind the All-Ireland series. But the first 2 weeks of play have been pretty good. You're getting bang for your bucks, to be fair to them.
Yeah.
I think it has shown, again, the difference between the league and the championship. Like the difference in intensity. And even Monaghan were saying that they had no intensity in the first half and they were still playing at more intensity than they did during the league. But I agree with your point to an extent, Tom, in terms of what the game actually meant. Like, if you think about it from a Tyrone point of view, they lost, okay? They're going to go in as third seeds into the group. They can lose against the first seeds. They can lose again against the second seeds, and they can beat the fourth seeds and still be in. They can be after 3 losses and only after beating a fourth pot team, and they'll be into playoff against a second place team to get into the quarterfinal. So you can lose 3 games this year and still be in the All-Ireland quarterfinal. So I don't think the teams actually go out with that in mind. Once it's a championship match, like what Vinnie Curry said, once it's a championship match, it's massive, it's everything. But there's a flaw in the system there, surely, if you can lose 3 and still get into the quarters.
Yeah, 100%. And like, look, there will be...
You're not a fan, Jimmy, of this.
Definitely not that last round where you come third and you go, go on, so go back in.
Go on, you're good, lads.
Only 4 teams. Only 4 teams are gone by the middle of June, like. That's it. We're only losing 4 teams. The one thing is, if Monaghan actually, and I know it's an if, but if Monaghan turn over Derry...
It's a nightclub, isn't it? Like, you've had a few drinks, but go on. Don't make me regret
if Monaghan turn over Derry...
Don't make me regret it, Tyrone. You've lost 3 games.
Go on.
We're going to get a coffee. We're going to get a coffee there, and you're good. Sorry, Tia, I interrupted the point.
No, you're okay. I was just going to say, if Monaghan do beat Derry, Derry are more than likely going to be 4th seeds. So there is an element of jeopardy that we won't know exactly how it's going to pan out until the 2nd of May when the draws are made. But we will know very, very quickly. And I will actually put it to you, Paddy, Tyrone will be happy enough this morning, given what they actually showed, that they have enough in them. 13 of the 15 players who started the 2021 All-Ireland final started against Monaghan. And they played exceptionally well at times in that first half.
Yeah, they're not going to be happy that they lost the game. But in terms of, they'll have a review, I'm sure, this evening from the game. There were moments yesterday. I thought the first half performance was very, very, very good. Obviously, Derek Cavan, the standout player, his link up with McCurry. I liked their shape up front, that they kept the guys in deep. Like, Matty Donnelly gets a score after about 10 minutes, I think. It was a beautiful, very direct score, long kick out to Kilpatrick, who I thought was very good again yesterday, getting back to his form of the All-Ireland winning season. Pops it to Donnelly. Donnelly clips the score. I think he scored 3 points from play. I'm surprised they took him off down the stretch. But Tyrone were getting scores which were really, really slick, which they were not doing in the National League. Looked a bit better defensively until second half, obviously, and they just lose control of the game. I think the big issue for Tyrone, they'll have third quarter was a bit of a disaster for them. And for the experienced team, I was surprised. Now, the chat, obviously, after the game, Sunday game, and on BBC as well, there was actually a bit of a breeze there, and conditions were a bit tougher. Obviously, the goal man and we're shooting in the second half. That was seemed to be the scoring goal. But for Tyrone to be 5 points up at halftime, totally dominating, and their third quarters were so sloppy. A couple of bad misses. Morgan started losing some kickouts. He was exceptional in the first half, and the Tyrone just lose their shape. They just, McCurry and Cavan were causing all sorts of trouble. They get frustrated because they're not getting the ball. They start coming out the pitch, and it just plays into Monaghan's hands. And Tyrone, for about 20 minutes in that half, had no structure in their play up front. All they needed there was just slow the game down.
Okay.
Be big, boring bastards. Control the game for a minute. Get someone to go down injured. Work a shot. It doesn't even need to be a score. Work a shot. Get the ball there and get your whole team up the pitch so you can get set on the opposition kick out and play the game in Monaghan's half for a few minutes. Control. We talked about Roscommon the previous week. Controlling the tempo of the game. And Tyrone are a really experienced team. They should not have let that slide. It's okay for a minute or two. There was always going to be a reaction from Monaghan at the start of the second half, but Tyrone just let that go on for too long. And then the goal obviously makes a big difference as well. But for Tyrone, they're not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy they lost it. But O'Hanlon gets inside Myler too easy, which is, again, that's sloppy from Tyrone. But there were glimpses, most certainly, of Tyrone getting back to their best. And we've seen that towards the end of the National League. but they will be disappointed not to close that game out. And just the maturity of that team, they shouldn't have allowed that game to drift away from them like it did.
Can I ask you a question on that? Because you mentioned Roscommon there, and one of the words and the phrases we've been hearing is set the terms of engagement, and Monaghan did it in that second half. Do you know when the games that you would have played against Mayo entered into that kind of chaotic state that Mayo were looking to get? How did you reset or bring the terms of engagement back on your side? Is that where we started seeing the fists in the air?
Every team in the country does this now.
Yeah.
Putting their hand up, but what? Like
how do you reset the terms of engagement when the momentum is going against you?
We would have been big on it, like not leaving it to chance that you don't want to come in after the game and go, we lost complete momentum there. We would have been actively communicating. If we turned the ball over, that's like one turn. We would have been big against turning the ball over 3 times in a row. That just cannot happen. So it was always, if we one turnover or 2 turnovers, we get a message in from the sideline going, we need to get control back of this game, because momentum can change in the blink of an eye. And in a championship game, if a team gets a run on you, particularly in the latter stages, and we had this issue with Mayo, obviously, because Mayo wouldn't let you control the game. And that was always the constant challenge against them, to try and regain control. But it is a case of slowing the game down. All the kind of stuff you don't like seeing as a supporter, but lads, go down, kill the clock for a minute. Big thing was working a shot, and working a good shot. And Tyrone, again, that third quarter, Matty Donnelly misses one. Darren McCurry misses one. We see it with Mayo against Roscommon in the first half of their game the week before. Conor Loftus and Matty Ruane forcing bad shots. That is just the work. That just adds to bad momentum. The big thing for Tyrone, and they're an experienced team, they should do it. And what we would have done with Dublin, keep the ball for 2 minutes. It's horrible to watch, but it's horrible to play against as well. And it just brings the tempo back to what you want to do. And you work a shot. And even if it doesn't go over, you can get your 8 guys up into their half, put a big press on their kickouts, and it just brings balance back to the game. Tyrone for 20 minutes lost that completely. They were carrying the ball into contact. Derek Hannivan's probably a bit harshly. He probably could get a free, but things like that, guys running down blind alleys, getting turned over, crowd go mad, team go mad. You've seen the photo of the Roscommon guys with Aidan O'Shea the week before. That adds to the momentum. You start kicking wides, the crowd start getting involved, and then a big no is you can see the goal in that period, and then all bets are off. And that's what happened to Tyrone with O'Hanlon's goal. Nearly Myler's probably better off just pulling him down. Once he gets by you and he's clean through, it's like you just do not want to give away a goal in that situation, but that's nearly the nail in the coffin. The positive for Tyrone is they do get it back towards the end, and they actually go in front. Obviously, they get an impact off Sludden off the bench, so that's a positive for Tyrone. But I think in their review, they're going to be looking big time at that third quarter, losing their shape.
Yeah.
Players need to keep discipline, and that's Derek Hannivan, the young fella. But you're looking at McCurry beside him, or Matty Donnelly or Peter Hart, they're going, lads, get fucking back up the pitch. Because once they start coming out, and it's just bringing waves and waves of Monaghan players onto them. Carl O'Connell, Conor McCarthy coming from deep, and Tyrone just lost complete control of that. And that's the big learning point for them.
James, before I ask you about Derek Hannivan, what was your read of that? Like, how did Monaghan swing that in the second half?
Well, in terms of the what term did you use there again? The
terms of engagement.
Yeah, like sometimes once the ball goes dead, you can completely reorganize again. But I felt that sometimes Tyrone in the second half, they'd score a point or they'd kick away, that was fine, but they never pushed their 6 forwards back into their position. They kind of held back a little bit. So Begum was getting these easy kickoffs. He was getting them about 40 yards, little jabbers out the wing, and they were collecting him. And next thing, Carl O'Connell, these fellas were just getting them on the run of pace. So they were constantly under pressure. Like one thing that we used to say with Kerry was, once it goes dead, that's a reset. That's your chance to get back into your position. You're now up with the play again, because sometimes you might be a corner forward. You might be after tracking a Philly McMahon back into your full back line. It might be inside your own square, and you're only drawing pressure on yourself. So you have to get back into your possession and then face up and man up and get the ball back. So we actually never did the fist up in the air thing. We used to try and read when you do it, but we never actually did it. I think the danger with that is that the wrong fella can get it maybe, and you can be
you don't want someone on. We were confident enough.
And you're turned over.
All of our lads could manage with it. Like.
Yeah, I know. But if you're say against a Mayo, and against a Mayo was probably the main one, when the crowd got in your face, when it was complete chaos like that, they could turn you over anywhere on the field and they go for goal. So that you're kind of playing with fire a bit there. But no, I think the kick out and the reset's huge.
Can I ask you, why did this...
that, Tommy, just the massive change in whatever about the wind and momentum and all that stuff, Beggin's kickouts. Okay. Tyrone, I don't think he even had 50% in the first half. Tyrone, they set up a box on Beggin's kickouts from the half back line all the way up to the full forward line, and they leave Kennedy and Kilpatrick in the middle of the box. And Monaghan, all their players come into the centre of the pitch, and Tyrone know they're just going to try and break out to the wings, and Tyrone lads are just there waiting for them. It was bad movement from Monaghan. It was poor enough from Beggin as well. They were very, very slow to react to this. And for the whole first half, they didn't. Like, that's where Canavan's goal come from. So Tyrone set up on Beggin's kickouts. There was pressure on it, but it was really smart. They had their homework done. And they were absolutely...
against the wind.
Yeah.
Can help them there.
The wind as well, but just their mentality as well. They were like, we're going after this. They had their box set up. It was so clear as day from the high behind on the footage. And Monaghan didn't react to it at all. But that put Tyrone 5 points up. Like, of all the teams, we used to always say, when we're playing Tyrone, they're the one team, they live off turnovers. If you kick the ball away against Tyrone, if you're not in shape, it's a huge origin of the majority of their scores is off turnovers. And they were absolutely eviscerating Monaghan in that regard. And Begin was really struggling. And I'm just, okay, there's a bit of a breeze, but you don't just disregard that completely for the second half, which is what they did, Jimmy, like you're saying.
Yeah.
They gave Begin free rein, and Begin has a massive impact on the second half there.
Do you remember the one he caught them with, though, with the very long one? I think it was to Gallagher over the top.
Yeah. And Morgan was doing the first half as well.
They got a score off that, didn't they?
I think they got a free, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, McCarthy won a free.
Once he got that long one off, I think they went, whoa. Because Begin caught us. We played the Super 8s game above.
He's dangerous over the top, yeah.
He kicked it nearly into the other square. I swear to God. He has a reckless boot. I just thought,
Jimmy, it was they were getting so much joy. Honestly, I think they're over 50% steals in the first half.
Did they think they had damage done and they kind of took their foot off the gas?
Because both sides after the game, lads, I don't know if you heard the post-match interviews, but from both sides, it was the same message from all the Monaghan lads. We were told at half-time, we're off it in intensity-wise. All the stats have said it. So Monaghan upped it and Tyrone 5 points off. Did they just step back? Was it that simple that they stepped off a couple of percentages and Monaghan upped it? Like,
I think Tyrone were a bit naive in the second half. Like, they were wide open. The whole game was wide open. But last week we talked about how Monaghan could win, and it needed a masterclass from McManus. He ends up kicking 9 points, and 1 from play. But to give McManus 8 frees, like 8,
that kept him in the game. First half.
They probably gave him 6 or 7 scoreable frees, and then that one on the 45 that he sent Begin home for.
That was a sensational kick, but don't give McManus the chance to do that. You know, it was their main source of scores for a lot of the game.
It keeps McManus in the game, but it kept Monaghan in the game.
100%.
Like Tyrone, I was hugely impressed with Tyrone in the first half. The matchups again, like Hampsey eats McCarran's taken off. I was surprised to put McNamee on McManus, but he's doing okay. And to be fair, McManus, he gets an exceptional point from play. He's nearly Clifford.
No one's stopping that.
Yeah, if he has the ball in his hands in that regard, there's not a whole pile you can do. And Tyrone were just completely controlling the game in that regard. So it was just for them to take their foot off the gas. And they're not an inexperienced team.
No.
Like they're kind of he's 22. He strikes me as a very, very smart player. He might for him to lose his shape, coming back, looking to get on the ball, that's up to someone like McCurry or Matty Donnelly. Just get back up there. You're doing more damage coming back. You're just inviting pressure on. And Monaghan are a team. Like if you look at the second half, Carl O'Connell, Conor McCarthy, like they've been around a long time, but their game is bursting forward. And Tyrone were just inviting that on. And for them to not regain control of that game, I think that's the biggest thing for them. They had the game won, really. Like, you know what I mean?
Vinnie Corey made a big call in the 34th minute. He took off one of his debutants, and maybe it wasn't that big a call.
To be fair,
like Thomas McPhillips and let's say it, Ryan O'Toole were getting the runaround in the first half. They actually both switched. One started on Canavan, one started on McCurry, and they switched because I think Tyrone had 1-8 from 110 from their full forward line in the first half. They bring on Shane Kerry, a vastly experienced footballer from Scottstown. They move another Scottstown man back to wing back, Conor McCarthy, who is naturally a centre forward, but has actually played a lot of football on wing back this year. Why did that move for McCarthy work so well? Because McCarthy did not get a sniff in the first half, and he had his pause. He had his pause over 5 or 6 points in the second half between frees and points that he kicked.
Well, I suppose he probably likes coming from it from a different position. There's a huge difference between playing with your back to goal and playing with your facing the goals. Yeah. Like he's getting the ball, he's carrying it. But that's what I thought was strange from Tyrone, that they didn't have any kind of a blockage in that at all. Like Carl O'Connell and both wing backs were able to literally power all the way up the field into scoring positions. Yeah. So as much as it was a great tactical decision to switch him, it was just the way the game was. It allowed for the ball to be carried such long distances. I remember, who was it that carried the ball? Do you remember from McCurry's free at the very end? When he's pushed in the back, kind of a harsh enough free,
soft enough. Yeah,
I think it was it Kennedy carried the ball at that stage from the wing back spot, just a 3/4 pace run all the way up to the 21, and not a hand put on him. So on either
back to
side,
the old gig, Jimmy, we were talking about last week. Me and you could still be playing wing back. It's beautiful back there. Like, just give you the ball and let you run up with it.
But like you'd almost say that against the Tyrone and the Monaghan, that's the one thing that you wouldn't be allowed to do. So it kind of went against the grain, that the game just panned out completely differently to what you thought it would.
Yeah. Well, let's just linger then on the game on Saturday, Paddy, and don't give out before we get into it. But Derry Fermanagh is a fairly routine win for Derry in the end. Shea Cullen obviously buries 2 goals, but Fermanagh didn't really ever lay a paw on Derry. Even from the first 4 minutes, Derry raced into a 5-point lead. One of the interesting things there was Fermanagh's setup. They went man-to-man on Derry, and that just did not work. And you could already see it when Oren Lynch, the goalkeeper, slots over his first point from play. They were going man-to-man. They were staying with the fellas. The Derry lads were pulling them out of the way, and it was just freeing up the space for Derry to punch holes in that.
It was spectacularly naive from Fermanagh. And like, in a way, you can say it's admirable trying to go man-to-man and pushing up all over the pitch on Derry. But the danger of that is someone breaks the line, then it's basically a house of cards. And
which we saw,
every single attack, Derry were just breaking the line. It was like, and they didn't change it. They were going long on their kickouts. They were being wiped on that as well. It was like, please change this. This is not working at all. And by the middle of the first half, the game was over. You know, McGuigan gets the goal. Derry get their second goal as well. Again, just breaking through the line, and all of a sudden they're clean through and goal. It was just very, very passive defense. Once a guy went through, Derry were just clean through. So it was efficient from Derry, to be fair to them. A lovely bounce back for them. A good game for them to get after the National League and the disappointment of that final performance against Dublin. We kind of teed it up last week. It would be a good game for them to get, and it turned out that way. So Derry wouldn't have learned a whole pile from that. We didn't see a whole pile of new stuff from Derry. Their forward rotation, their conditioning, all that type of stuff that we seen through the league, which was impressive. They just brought that again. Fermanagh, their setup didn't help them at all, but it was a bit of a non-event, and that's the worry of these provincial championship games. As good as Sunday was in Armagh, you're going to get some of these games. There's a lot of provincial championship games. Leinster championship games this weekend. There are going to be some of these games where it's a bit dour. So Derry, Paul Cassidy's goal was the epitome of what was wrong with Fermanagh's setup. Once he goes by, he's clean through and goal. So not a whole pile learned. Who had a worse stage, you reckon? The Fermanagh groundsman who just relayed that pitch, or Fermanagh as a team?
Was there a concert done before or something? Was there?
Brewster's Park has only been redeveloped, lads. We'll give them a couple of weeks now.
Derry pitch was spectacular.
Derry. Tommy, did you go to college with the fellow who did the pitch or what?
Come on, is your mate?
I just don't want to be singling him out.
Can't bring that up.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I agree that game was once the goal goes in the first half from McGuigan, like, you're thinking, the writing's on the wall. Yeah. But the one thing that I would say that Derry kind of threw at it a bit different was the full court press, where they brought Oren Lynch completely up, marking someone. And he's decent in the air, in fairness to him. So I think that's something they tried. Now, it did create a couple of goal chances for Fermanagh from long range. Because if you get a more accurate player who catches a mark or who wins a break and gets a free, there is a long shot on for a goal there. And like,
we saw
it only needs one of them to go in. Yeah, one of those go in and you're spooked forever. Never mind just that game. So it's a dangerous play. It'd be interesting to see how it pans out. But Last week we saw Mayo turn down a couple of those chances. I'd love to see a long range goal going.
We see Derry against Monaghan now in the Ulster semi-final. A very, very interesting game. I believe it's on GAA Go, if I'm not mistaken. But
first plug of the year.
Hashtag ad.
Paid content. But no, Saturday night, Derry Fermanagh, not a classic. Move swiftly.
The last one on this, right? So actually 2 points. Shane McGuigan looked like a fella who's chasing top scorer in the championship this year. He was nearly, I'd say, as up for that game as Rory Gallagher was. He scored 2-5, was going for goal every chance he got. Looked good. Derry started 8 defenders and their spread of scores were 11. So I don't know if that is something we're going to see a bit more from Derry this year. Maybe that's just the options they have at the minute.
You can't. That was, Fermanagh were awful. You can't read too much into that game.
Yeah, okay.
Genuinely. In the grand scheme of things, like there you're talking about competing for All Ireland. That game is, you're not learning much from that. Fermanagh were awful.
How,
it led us into the difference. The difference is stark between one
Fermanagh
and 2.
Division 2.
Between 1 and 3 is huge difference. Between 1 and 4 is a bye.
Yeah,
I mean, it's as simple as that. Like you can tiptoe around it. There's no point in playing Division 1 against Division 4 or Division 1 against. Now, in fairness to Fermanagh
are promoted.
They went up. I know they went up
Division 2. Like,
I know, it just proves like that when you get used to playing that standard, you can't raise it. That was my point about Dublin as well this year, and it's different with them obviously because they're so talented.
You think Laois are going to beat Dublin on Sunday?
When you get used to playing at that lower level, it's hard to just raise it for a championship match like that. It's hard to do it.
Can I ask you, is that why
Antrim in Division 3 and stay in Division 3 under Andy McEntee, and they play Armagh, who are obviously on a low with injuries, and Armagh just absolutely swat them aside like it is. That's the danger of the provincial championship. That's why these systems, this entire new championship system has been brought in. Because I think it's so flawed. And we do get anomalies like a brilliant game yesterday that kind of saves it. But we can't be given out when we see over the next 3 weekends through the rest of the provincial championships. We're probably going to see it in Munster. We're probably going to see it in Leinster in particular. There's going to be these mismatch games.
We know it's coming.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to make too much of Rory Gallagher's exuberant celebrations. It seems like it's pointed at somebody in Fermanagh somewhere. But I found it interesting after the game. I was listening to him. He was speaking to Saturday Sport and RTE, and he said, "We didn't want to get too up for the game today. We just wanted to relax into it." And I just found that a little. I just found that a little funny.
Those goals are going in there.
Yeah, but I just found that approach, like, no matter how many times I saw, you know, yourself or Johnny Cooper do a pre-match interview before a Division 4 Leinster title Dublin facing, or
he's lying.
A Kerry, like, is that true? Do you not want to get too up for those games?
No, if anything, from my experience, if anything, you have to go the other way, because the game does not. I know we talked about getting motivated for games a couple of weeks ago, but that game does not. It doesn't get to say the fear of losing into your play. So you have to get it from somewhere else.
How do you guard against complacency then?
If you take, doesn't mean you have to go at it as if it's the biggest game of the year.
Derry were not laid back.
You are complacent.
That game. No chance.
No, they weren't. He's lying. He's telling Parkies 100%.
Okay.
He was inside in that dressing room going ballistic before the game.
Lads, anything a manager says
flying everywhere
over the next month, it's a lie.
Okay. So you think we can get away with calling people liars on this pod? Okay, no problem. You are listening.
Pinch of salt, should I say?
You are listening to episode 14 of the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue. Might be a good time to remind everyone that we are off to Killarney on Thursday, May the 4th. We're really looking forward to it. We are going to be looking at the All-Ireland Round Robin series as a whole that weekend. We'll have the draw 2 days beforehand, so we'll know who third seeds Mayo and Tyrone will be playing against. We'll know essentially who the first and second seeds will be. We won't have the provincial finals yet. There'll be the Connacht and Munster finals that Sunday, and the Leinster and Ulster finals are the following Sunday. So we'll be having a live podcast in the Great Southern Hotel. There are still a few tickets available left, so try and get them now while you can. We will be announcing our special guest, I'd say next Monday. We might hold off till next Monday to announce them, but we will be announcing our special guest. We had Keith Higgins last year in Castlebar and Michael Meehan in Kilmacud Crokes for our pre-All-Ireland final roadshow last year. So that's it, lads. We're looking forward to it. Paddy, have you booked in your golf down in Kerry?
I'm going down next Thursday. I'm spending 2 weeks down there.
Lovely. And James
is booked the hotel for me, have you?
Yeah, that's all lined up, man.
Magic, spot on.
And it's
I'm on 2 golf lessons a day for the next 2 weeks. I
was playing golf a few weeks ago. I will not be playing golf again in public for a long time. Is Killarney ready for the football pod, James?
I think it should be able to handle it all right. It is the best town in Ireland. Like.
Yeah, our tickets are selling extremely fast. Like, is that something to do with the fact that this is your homecoming?
No, it has absolutely nothing to do with that.
It's an open goal.
Come on, James. Sell it to me a little bit. Come on.
It's you, Tom. All the women are just flocking.
The women across the nation are flocking to the Monte Carlo of the Southwest.
I'd say it's more of a chance of Junior B footballers than that. So that is.
It'll be a good show. It'll be a good show.
It is going to be savage.
Great weekend. It's going to be great. Yeah.
This.
We will announce.
It's going to be good.
We will be very good. Yeah. A fella you've battled against and Paddy has battled against and you've played with. So it's going to be very good. It's going to be interesting. Be plenty of crack in the night. Lads, we're going to look at next weekend when we come back after the break here. There are 10 championship matches. I know you're both very, very excited. So we'll be back right after these. You're very welcome back to episode 14 of the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue. Paddy, what is the biggest lie you've ever told in a pre-match interview as a Dublin footballer?
I can't answer that question on air. Jesus Christ. That's an off-air comment or post-Killarney live show. I can't be delving into that stuff here. We were always very respectful in our media duties before and after matches.
Were you briefed?
I can neither confirm nor deny if we were briefed. If you look back through that period,
some bad interviews.
It will be pretty obvious we were briefed. Yes, we were. Some good stuff.
James, were you allowed out to speak your mind before a match?
They shut you down after your Facebook hack. You were never allowed to meet. It's Morris had to put you in chains. Like
we didn't do much. I got in trouble right one time. I said Gooch was coming back from injury or something like that. And the interviewer said, are you looking forward to playing with Gooch? Do you think you could interchange between number 11 and number 15 or something like that, or between the full forward and centre forward?
And he's teeing you up, Jimmy.
I was like, yeah, love playing with Gooch, whatever. If we can rotate, gave some spiel just off the cuff. Obviously, I'd never thought about that or anything. Front or back page of the paper.
Gooch is back. Shamed. We picked up on that now. Yeah, that was a double plant.
Nuts.
Yeah,
but
what was the back page? That Gooch is going to be 11.
It was they probably hung me out to dry. It was like James O'Donoghue says that he's going to be centre forward and Gooch is going to be corner forward. It just made me look like an absolute.
Don't be blaming the media. You are the media now. You are the media. You're a snake.
But you can be caught. You have to be careful. Definitely have to be careful.
It depends
because you get burned a couple of times and then you realize that you're better off being a dub and just saying, yeah, they're a good team.
And they were good teams. Go
on, Paddy.
You never said a thing.
Go on, Paddy. Give us a classic. Come on.
No.
Paddy, did you ever do an interview the morning of a big game?
The morning?
No. Sorry, have one. I know it's going to be in the paper. Do you know the way, like, back in the day?
I did our All Ireland Media Day for the 5-0, I think.
That was a bad sign, was it?
Yeah. If you're doing that, you know you're fucked. Like, I didn't play. Jim was like, right, you do the media there for the All Ireland Day. And I was like, oh, really? There's no one else around. Cluck, I'm not able to do it. No.
I think there's a great photo shoot with you in that one. You weren't too happy doing it.
No, we would have done stuff a couple of weeks before the game. Never ended the week. No.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, like, yeah. Because
I think most teams are like that now. That's a big... It was gas. Who did we have? Mark O'Connor last year, talking about the AFL lads.
Yeah.
What a breath of fresh air. The approach of like the guys were doing their own podcasts and stuff, and they were still playing and interviews the week. It's just brilliant access for fans and supporters. GAA has never caught on with that, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Teams, coaches, players are just guarded. Like Jimmy's example there, you don't want to be You don't want to say anything that's going to annoy your teammates, your coaches, give the opposition any sort of a dig out. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but when you're in it, when you're in the team and you're in the group, it's cardinal sin. Because see the reaction last week to poor old Sean Quigley up in Fermanagh, and everyone's saying because he did a podcast that he wasn't. That's why he wasn't picked. He was injured, obviously.
No, did the hammer.
But isn't that like that's even if that's thought of going, geez, he must be dropped because he did a podcast. That's such a GAA thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, that mentality, and it's not. In terms of now we're on the other side and we're promoting the games or in the media and things like that as well. Of course you want to see more access and things like that, and you want to hear honest interviews with players because there is amazing characters and great lads around, but you're just not gonna. You're not going to see it. I hold my hands up. Our Dublin team, we were probably front and center for why that is, but that was our attitude towards it. It was just.
But Liam Hayes obviously was, a sports journalist when he was
different time though too.
Back in the early 90s. But like he used to write a piece. He used to write about the Cork footballers or the Kerry footballers, and he'd have people coming up to him saying, "How could you say that? Yeah, how could you say that about them fellas?" And he said he'd be able to list off what he said about his own teammates in the paper and say, I have to have them to the same standards. And he'd often write stuff about Sean Boylan, a feature piece maybe in the build up to a big game. And he'd say to Shawnee at training on Thursday, listen, this is going out on Sunday. Do you want me to run out and buy it? And Shawnee'd say, listen, Liam, I trust you. Whatever you're doing, work away. So it depends. Like, and I know some people will tell me now there's been some great, Sunday spreads the day of an All-Ireland final and, big players doing interviews the day of it.
But those interviews would have been done.
Of course they would have.
And they all them for the final.
Yeah, of course.
Who went to Wrexham? Is it Ben Foster who does
Foster? Yeah.
He used to go on GoPro from the match.
Magic stuff.
I was watching Soccer AM Saturday morning. I was watching Soccer AM Saturday morning, which is being cancelled, by the way. Absolute joke.
Yeah.
I was watching Soccer AM.
When have you last watched Soccer AM? Do you actually watch it?
Tim Lovejoy's still doing it.
But Jimmy Bullard and your man rang Ben Foster. And Foster goes, oh yeah, I'm just eating my pre-match meal here. We're playing Barnet in an hour and a half or something. I'm just eating a chicken sandwich. And he did a full interview an hour and a half before the game.
But lads, do you know what? If you watch...
Do you not want a bit more of that, no?
Oh, as a fan, yeah, of course you do. But look at the reaction to McIlroy doing that interview in the Masters. I was loving it. I was like, he's literally just duffed a chip and he's talking about it live on air. But he got absolutely eviscerated for doing that. Like, he should be focused on the game. And I go, yeah, if I was playing, he probably should be. But as a supporter, I was like, give me more of that.
Yeah.
Come back to me when he treble bogeys the next one as well. Like, I'd love to hear from him. He shouldn't be doing it in terms of high performance and focus and things like that. But as a product to watch for the media, for fans, yeah, you want more of that. Yeah. You should mic up the lads.
I know. Could you imagine the McManus begging conversation there when begging, who's probably missed 245, was coming up, but it's in his range.
Yeah, back in your goal, Rory. I've got this. Him and McManus and Con Kilpatrick have a little giggle after that. Imagine hearing that stuff. That's what, as a fan, of course you want to see it, but it's not going to happen in GAA. Of all sports, GAA will be the last to bring that type of stuff.
I don't know. We might get close with, and back in the day, you used to have journalists getting into the dressing room after the games and doing their interviews in there. There may be a day it gets back to that. It's obviously gone very guarded. And like we mentioned it earlier, fear has taken grip in the GAA. Sean Quigley spoke about it as well. Boys are afraid that on the Monday it'll be put up, or on the Tuesday video session it'll be put up. Why didn't you do that? Or why did you take that pass? So, yeah.
I also think that the players don't realize how much, this is from my point of view, you almost don't realize how much interest there is in the small details when you're involved, because you're so sheltered. Like there's nothing, you're just completely focused on the next training session. You're blocking everything out. But there's so many conversations happening about every little detail about your camp. And I'm having those conversations now every day at work and every day with the boys. Whereas I would have completely...
Really? Did you just block it out, or did you actually have no idea?
Those conversations probably make you uncomfortable anyway, because you're either talking about yourself or talking about one of your buddies.
Yeah.
And someone will say, well, Paddy Andrews said this, or James Under said that. So they'll carry what you say. But like, I definitely didn't realize how much interest there was in every small detail until I was out of there.
And did you ever feel media pressure in your career?
No.
You ever feel the heat? Like, do you ever feel the heat after doing an interview where, I suppose after the Morris example you give there, where the Gucci example you give there, did you ever feel that? No?
No.
Yeah, Paddy, did you ever feel that?
I would have never read a paper. Jack O'Connor said, don't ever read a paper. It softens your head. And if you think like it's true, it turns your mind to mush. Like you're kind of thinking, why did he say that? Or what did he mean by that? Or does he rate him higher than me? Like it opens up something that you do not want opened. Like you have to be.
The only thing inter-county players should be looking at or listening to is the football pod.
Absolutely.
Fair. But, and just saying that, like you saying Jack O'Connor says, don't read the papers. Players read the papers. Like Kieran Donaghy read Joe Bradley's piece back in 2014.
No, I told him that on the morning of the All-Ireland.
Did you?
I swear to God. We were going down for the pre-match meal. And I said, did you hear what Bradley said?
Bradley said you're shy. Yeah, just to get him going. Donaghy was like that though. Donaghy loved to be poked, like.
He did, yeah.
He loved that adversity, like that was his baby.
But if you weren't
better off just leaving him be, like, don't wind him up, like.
But if you weren't sure about something, you said it to Donaghy, he'd spin it positively for you, like.
Really?
Know? Yeah.
Do you know if somebody said something about you?
He's great bit of stuff now.
Well, no matter what it was, he'd spin it and he'd make it.
So you'd get it like you'd get a 3 out of 10 in the player ratings, and Donny would come in and go, you are top class out there.
Yeah. You don't see all the work you're doing off the ball.
Your runs, creating space.
Is that a mentality monster?
That was the best space.
Create more space, Jimmy. Keep running. Donny after scoring 2-6.
Yeah.
Just keep
wing. Kicking it in. It doesn't matter if you get 3 out of 10. Just keep putting it in high.
No, the media, it was total avoidance on our side. Genuinely.
Yeah.
You're in a bubble. Yeah, you stay away from everything.
But it's not good. It's not the best for the game. No, it's not the best for the game. I think you can make more out of players' personalities, more conversations to be had if you expose them a bit more.
Everyone thought you were a boring bastard, Jimmy, when you played. And look at you now, like.
That's it, like. I don't hid myself well.
Was I the only call you got when you were tired?
What's that?
Was I the only call you got when you were tired?
To do a bit of media work, is it?
Yeah.
No, they were queuing up for Jimmy.
That was a long time ago now.
I was the first one in anyway. I knew.
He was saying it to me, Jimmy, and I was like, I don't know about that fella. I don't know. Try and get Donaghy.
The terms of engagement this Sunday in the Hyde.
Oh.
Davy Burke's Roscommon against Pádraig Joyce's Galway. How do we see this one going?
The element of surprise that the Rossies had going to Castlebar is well and truly gone. There's massive confidence from that win. The manner of that win, they went and I suppose you could say they really bullied Mayo in that game. That's a team who control the game completely. Do they go with the same approach against Galway? Galway will be expecting this. Galway will have their prep done and they'll have a response to if the Rossies keep the ball for 3 or 4 minutes. Will we push up? Will we sit off? I think pushing up is a big opportunity for Galway. I think they'll have learned lessons from Mayo pushing up on the kickouts, but then dropping off and letting the Rossies have it and dictate the terms of the game. Interesting to see Galway's bounce back. They were a disappointing performance in the league final from them. They've had a couple of weeks prep. Like I say, they're coming in with their eyes wide open to the challenge Roscommon are going to bring. Comer's going to be a little bit fitter. Can they get Killian McDade back? Will we see him at the weekend? I think we said there's going to be some mismatches in provincial championship games, particularly this weekend. But Roscommon and Galway over in the High Park is not going to be one of them. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'll be at it. James, what are you looking at for this game? What are you expecting?
I'm expecting a good game, but I think Galway will have a lot of work done since the league final. I think that they'll have sharpened up a lot. And unlike Mayo, I think they'll have got a little bit of a kick up the arse, which you need sometimes just to refocus them. They won't be going in thinking they're going to win. They'll be going in completely level-headed. Focused. It's a massive game. I think that they'll be in a good headspace. And they'll have got an extra couple of weeks into Comer. I think if Galway had Comer on from the start in the league final, I think it probably would have given them the structure and the focal point up front. I think they would have won that game. So I think that having him a little bit fitter, another couple of weeks into Shane Walsh, in among the group. Hopefully, he kicks all the frees off his right from the middle.
I hope he wasn't listening to the football pod, Jimmy. You slating him there the last couple.
I would never say. But he should take, like he did in the Connacht series last year, where he kicked a couple of great scores with his right from the right hand side.
Yeah.
And what McDade, the sooner they get McDade, better. Obviously,
it's so important, isn't he?
He's so important. Such an engine. No, they're very strong around that area, but McDade's different gravy. Like, McDade's probably in the top 5 players in the country when he's at it. So he's going to be a huge addition as well whenever he's back. I think the Galway will have the right mentality. I think that Keane O'Neill and Joyce will have done a lot of work with him.
Yeah.
And I think that they'll be well prepped for Roscommon.
I like Galway, lads. I like the style of play they have, the journey they're on as a team, the group they have. Losing Malloy and Silk is damaging at the back, most certainly. But the addition of Peter Cook, guys like that, I think I think they've improved again. Even though the league, they didn't get the silver at the end. There's glimpses, what I see from Galway. I like the trajectory they're on. I'd be interested to see them in their first championship game of the weekend. The big thing I'd say, what I'd want to see, Finnerty, Matty Tierney, Conroy, they're big players who didn't really perform in the league final. Mayo did a number on them. And the Rossies are going to have a plan for those guys as well. I want to see Matty Tierney go out and dominate that game.
Yeah.
Deal with the attention he's going to get, because he's going to get it in every championship game he plays. But there's a serious player in there, and I want to start seeing him. We've seen Derek Hannivan arrive to the championship yesterday. I want to see that from the guys like Finnerty and Tierney at the weekend as well, from Galway's perspective.
Do Roscommon approach that game the same way they did defensively against Mayo?
Yeah.
Do you think so?
And they'll definitely go at it the same way. Definitely. And if you think back to what we're saying, the terms of engagement, Galway are unbelievable game managers.
Yeah, they are. I could have that.
Freeze. Walsh will put it down. He'll pick it up again. He'll put it back down. He'll test the grass. Like, they will be very cute. So Roscommon, those tricks or those kind of plays won't work as well against Galway, I don't think. But from the player that I'm looking forward to seeing is whoever plays 13 for Galway. I presume it's going to be Finnerty. They need that player to chip in heavily for scores, because going forward, you can't keep relying on Comer and Walsh. It has to be spread responsibility to kick scores, especially from play.
Yeah. Okay. The spread in that game is 2 points at the moment. So
Galway favourites.
Galway favourites, yeah. So, yeah. Similar spread for Armagh Cavan, which is that surprising that Cavan Division 3 champions 2 point spread?
That game on telly.
That game, let me just check here. That game is on GAA Go.
Ad number 2. Thank you.
Are you covering a particular match this weekend?
Jesus, that is going to be some game.
Oh, you're at it, are you?
I am. I'm gonna go up and do a bit of work at it. Yeah.
Will you be at the game?
Yeah, looking forward to it.
You'll be at the game.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute battle.
Who's at the game with you?
Myself, Michael Murphy, the Michael Richards of GAA. He's on every platform. Fair play to him. And Mark O'Shea, I think. Let's chat with Mark O'Shea, actually.
Yeah, okay, that'll be interesting. So you boys will be in the athletic grounds for that.
It's not in Breffni Park, no?
Yeah, it's in Breffni Park. Yeah, it's in Breffni.
Okay.
Breffni Park, 6:30 p.m. live on GAA Go. Cavan against Armagh. Do we see an upset here? We spoke about the gap between.
Yeah, that's the worry with this one.
Division 3 in Fermanagh and Division 1 in Derry, and once again we have Division 3 in Cavan, and obviously Armagh are coming down from Division 1. Can we see an upset here this weekend? Like, bear in mind Kieran McGeeney's record in Ulster.
So poor in the Ulster Championship, which
just hasn't been good as Armagh manager.
Like, the interesting thing, we see if Rian O'Neill is back. The influence he has, he is critical to that Armagh team. We didn't expect them to have any trouble in dispatching with Antrim, and they didn't. Turbot is back kicking scores. I think he's a crucial player. He's a good foil to have for Rian O'Neill. Will it be too soon for him to come back? It's a dangerous game for Armagh going to Breffni Park. Cavan were the best team in Division 3. But the worry is that it was a significant gap. We've seen that over the first couple of weekends, the difference between the top tier and the lower divisions. Cavan will fancy their chances in this game, lads.
100%.
There's no two ways about it. Armagh's record is so poor in the Ulster Championship. Their year to date has been so stop-start, ultimately getting relegated, and they've got injuries. So if you're a Cavan supporter, the likes Paddy Lynch, Garone McKiernan, these guys, they're licking their lips for this game. But it would be a big surprise if they did take out Armagh, I have to say, even with all the issues Armagh are having at the minute.
The one thing that we saw the last day, two things we saw Shane McPartland and Ben Creeley come back into the midfield for Armagh. That was a problem position for them for the last couple of weeks. They've had a lot of injuries. We also saw Conor Turbitt come in, and he definitely would have got confidence from the points he kicked. He kicked 8 points overall.
Playing all the time. He's a scorer. He should be. He's an out-and-out scorer. For
he's been used as an impact sub. Yeah. In terms of Cavan, their most important position, looking at it from the outside, is going to be that half back line of Jared Smith, who was one of the best players in the Tailteann Cup last year. Darren McVeety. He didn't. He let. Yeah, exactly. We got a lot of grief for that. Darren McVeety,
a helmet going up to Breffni Park,
who's back from travelling, and Kieran Holler-Brady, who was so important in that 2020 provincial win that year. So he missed a good chunk of the last 18 months through injury as well. They are missing, though, James, one of your favourite footballers, Thomas Galligan. He's gone travelling. So
he's gone travelling. He had a great season last year. Very harsh red card in the Tailteann final.
Oh, that off was harsh, Jimmy.
Nah, it was
it nearly killed someone. But, it wasn't intentional, but
he should have got about 6 months jail time.
Well, look, is he? It's hard to get jail time in this country.
I think Armagh are going to be in a good position for this weekend.
Yeah,
I just have a good feeling about them.
A statement performance, like.
Yeah, I think they need it for everyone. You know, for the county, for the team. I think they need a good performance. I think they've trained hard. As you said, they're getting a lot of bodies back, a lot of defenders back, and if they can get Murnan and Rian O'Neill in around that team again, like
even if you're looking from McGeeney, so Armagh would have been going for an Ulster Championship. The way the draws panned out for them as well.
Yeah,
you know, you look at Down and Donegal are on their side. Down are starting to get some sort of confidence back under Conor Laverty. Donegal has been a bit of a basket case. Armagh are looking at the three teams on their side of the draw. They've got to be looking at being in an Ulster final. Definitely they would have at the start of the season when this draw was made. It's the wheels have come off a little bit. That's why it's an intriguing one to see their response to this. Are we going to get the Armagh at their best? The performances we've seen in glimpses in the qualifiers last year, beating Tyrone, beating Donegal, pushing Galway all the way, or is it going to be the kind of Jekyll and Hyde stuff we've seen with them for the last 4 months of the season? It's not an easy one going to Breffni Park. It'll be full house. Cavan are going to fancy it as well, but you'll have to just tune into GAA Go.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see Paddy. Who's kitting you out, Paddy? Who's kitting you out? Who's kitting you out for GAA Go?
I'm wearing my own clothes. Brown Thomas, I think. Sent a load of emails to Brown Thomas. No one's come back to me.
No hoodie, and no hood up. Okay.
It'll be freezing cold up there.
You won't get away with that in a streaming service.
Oh, no.
I think McGee and Donaghy will have spun the second half of the league well for the Armagh lads. Do you know, like
relegated?
Yeah, like
that's a hard spin. Only Donaghy could do that, Jimmy.
If you heard Turbid interviewed,
you've been relegated, but you're flying at last.
But if you heard the interview from Turbid after the game,
oh, you've lost your last 4 games, but you are moving well.
Yeah. So, but that's what management is. You have to manage these kind of ups and downs of the season and try and spin them your way. Like if you heard Turbid in the interview after the Antrim game, he said how close they were to a lot of the top teams in Division 1.
And they were.
How they only just came out on the wrong side. And otherwise, if you don't spin it like that, you're completely deflated and you're thinking we're going nowhere here.
Give up.
So, yeah.
I'll give you an example, lads, right? Actually, just reminded me there. I was playing golf in Tralee with Donaghy last year, right? We ran, I think it was the 12th or 13th tee box. And I duffed tee shots straight into the ocean, into the Atlantic. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And Donny's just standing there behind me. He's like, some swing that. I was like, what a man. I go, reload, give me another go. I had about a 9 on a par 3. And he was like, no, you're swinging it well, man.
Psychologist.
Exactly that to be our man, lads. What you need walking on air.
Is that what a performance coach does? Okay. That's interesting.
Basically,
yeah.
Tell them they're great.
You'd be surprised how players can concoct a story in his head like wrongly. Do you know? He could go home when a fella goes away from training. You don't know what he's thinking. He could be completely beating himself up. He could be blaming himself for something, or he could be saying,
"It's so true.
We're wasting our time here." Or you need strong management, strong leaders, strong personalities in there to get inside your head and re-point you in the right direction. Like that is so important. You see teams spiral out of control. You see teams go like Cavan got relegated 3 on the spin. And all they needed was just redirect. They're back up 2 promotions in a row now.
Mm-hmm.
Like that little
same management team
mentality makes some
difference. It's funny. Like even we would have spoken with Jimmy, our own playing career. I remember would kick a couple of scores in the game. My focus would always be on one that I missed. Like how it missed that, and I go home and be watching clips from the Sunday game, rewinding it, what went wrong, and you could have had a brilliant game outside of it. And it is.
Did I hold you back?
No, maybe initially at the start when you're young, when you're a younger player, but then you learn how to deal with it. And I was interested listening to Quigley's interview last week when he was on the podcast speaking about like sports psychologists get a lot of guff and they get a lot of stick from people. But I think if you get a good one, and it's a very saturated market, but if you get a good one, they are worth their weight in gold in terms of like you talk about it, they're low on confidence. A team is low on confidence. Our player is low on confidence. They're second guessing themselves. You look at someone like Colin McShane, for example. There's a brilliant player, but for some reason, coming back from injury, it's not happening for him. You see it in so many teams, so many sports. Having a chat with someone and just bringing the positive back into your game gives you that bit of confidence. You relax a bit more when you're playing. I think it's crucially important. In elite sport, having that. And I know we're kind of laughing about someone like Donaghy as well, but guys like that in your dressing room are crucial.
Who did it for you?
Our coaches, our players, we would have been big on it. Like that, we're talking about trying to control the game and not lose momentum. We would have been massive on the mental side of performing in big games, not losing control of the games, not just performing. What does it take for you as an individual or your team to perform? And really going big on that. Like we didn't just rock up. We won All Ireland finals by so many times by a point, or games we shouldn't have won against Mayo, and we managed to just keep control and pull it out of the bag. You look at Kerry's win last year in the final 10 minutes down the stretch against Galway. They outscored them. They control the last 10 minutes of the game, and that's in an unbelievably high pressure situation. That with someone like Sean O'Shea kicking that free against Dublin. That's a guy being locked in, performing. That's sports psychology. They're conversations you have to have the confidence to back your skills in those situations. It's so important. And it can be as simple as that. Like Donaghy coming off the turbot and going, phenomenal. Kicking scores the last, even against a team like Antrim where they're lower quality, but the confidence you get from that as well. Someone like McManus, the confidence he has built up over 15 years of playing, that there's no question when he gets that free and he sends Beggan back. I'm like, just go, that's a score. 100% he's kicking that over the bar. It's so important.
Some people might naturally have those skills themselves, though, would they? James,
that's what I was going to say there. Like, you talk about it getting a sports psychologist in, but the top players, whether they work on it or not, they have it naturally. Like, from my time, and Donaghy is the main example because he had a phenomenal mentality. Like himself and towards the team, but fellas like Declan O'Sullivan and Gooch, they tell you this is the way you should be. This is the way you should be thinking now. This is the way that we're going at this, and that's powerful. Then you're kind of following a leader and you're following a mindset. Like I can see where the kind of debate about the sports psychologist comes if they don't have any footballing background. I can see that 5 or 6 of the group might go, what the fuck do we have that fella in for? And it kind of eats away at everyone else's opinion on him. But if the psychology is coming from one of your best players, that can be so helpful. Like, especially
you said it from the basics. Coaches can get caught up in hundreds and thousands of different things. The role of the coach is to help your players perform better. Bottom line, how do you, whether you're a forwards coach, a backs coach, a skills coach, you're the main manager, selector, whatever way you want to dress it up, your job is to help your players at your disposal perform. And that's physically, mentally, tactically, all those things. And for the teams going out this weekend, the championship, or example, Davy Burke sending those Roscommon guys out to put in a brilliant performance against Mayo. That's the role of a coach. You can get caught up in loads of different stuff, but if you're sending the team out and they're low on confidence and they're second guessing themselves, you're fucked. Basically, do you know what I mean? It can be that simple.
Yeah. Let's that was interesting. Let's just breeze through some of these other games quickly, and we might come back to that another day. Maybe with our special guest at the Road Show in Clarny, you might get into a bit of that.
Oh yeah.
So that could be good.
Yeah.
So Armagh Cavan, the last line I'll give on Armagh Cavan is Cavan are playing for their place in the All-Ireland series. Armagh are guaranteed a spot in the All-Ireland series. The last word on that before we go into that game. And also confirmation, we're going to give the predictions a rest on the football pod until the round robin series come in. You know, we've been kind of
I tipped Monaghan last week.
Wrong predictions.
We've been kind of half doing them, half not doing them in recent weeks. But just
that's Derry to beat Fermanagh, to be fair. Chalk that one up.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, a lot has gone on since I mentioned Down Donegal, and I kind of put a little circle around Down. It was around February when I mentioned it, so a lot has gone on since. So I don't know how much to be said about it, but the spread in that game at the minute, Down Donegal are slight favourites. Spread is 1 point at the minute. So that game is going to go down to the wire.
Your top two favourites for the All-Ireland are so Down and Louth, isn't it?
Louth for Leinster, definitely. I don't know if you said All-Ireland.
If Louth and Down make it into the All-Ireland series, come back to me. Down obviously have beaten the All-Ireland under-20 champions Tyrone in the under-20s quarter-final, and Monaghan last week in the semi-final. Conor Laverty is over both teams. Laverty and his partner in crime there, Marty Clark, on his backroom team, were both on the last Down team to beat Donegal back in 2010. Down obviously went on that smash and run to get to the All-Ireland final where they lost to Cork. So
Kerry,
that game's on BBC on Sunday at 2:00. It's going to be an interesting one. Roscommon-Galway.
Refereeing decision. Sorry, Tommy.
He's rattled there. Look at him.
Are you on about the hand pass? In the rain.
You'll never let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Let's not quote Frozen.
Be like Frozen and let it go.
Down Donegal is at 2:00 on the Sunday. Roscommon-Galway is at 4:00 on the Sunday. I'll be there for off the ball. We've got 4 Leinster round robin games as well. We'll come back to them quick fire in a moment. But in Connacht as well, we've Sligo, New York. I'll give you one chance for a prediction here. Is there anyone tipping another fairy tale of New York this weekend? It's in Markovich Park.
See what you did there.
It's in
the fact that I hope we get to go over and record a podcast over there, I'm going to back New York, yeah.
I've New York 26th in the power rankings. I got a bit of grief for that last week.
So we're doing Clarny in May, Manhattan in June.
That'd be magic, wouldn't it? It nearly happened last year. We're very close.
Well, there you go.
We've had a lot of nearlies. We'd want to be having a few definites.
We're so close. We're like Mayo.
That's a dig at me, I fear.
So close. Bobby, get it sorted.
Sligo, New York, spread is 7 points. So
7.
Yeah, it's at home game. Like New York looked like they had Sligo on the stretch last year. Sligo pulled away 1-4. I think if it was in New York, it'd be a different story. But it's a game we're keeping an eye on. It'll be very interesting to see how they get on. 17 provincial medals in that starting team for New York that took down Leitrim, and 3 All-Ireland senior medals as well. So there is experience there. In Munster, Kerry and Tip, there's no one really predicting an upset here. The spread is 18 points. And in Clare and Limerick, the spread is 4. Clare are favourites here. Limerick bet them on penalties last year in the Munster quarter-final. Limerick have removed their manager, Ray Dempsey. Mark Fitzgerald has taken over. Much of the backroom team has stayed. It's much the same Limerick team. They have a couple of injuries, a couple of key injuries up front as the team that turned over Clare last year. That game is on Saturday evening in the Gaelic grounds in Limerick. So that'll be one of the most interesting games with the most on the line in a lot of ways on Saturday. And then anything floating your boat, lads, from the weekend? Is there any game you're particularly interested in, James? Anything you're looking forward to?
I suppose the one, obviously, the Kerry game is going to be interesting to see who Jack O'Connor is actually.
Every game is not going to be interesting.
Delete that.
I'm not deleting that. It's going to cost you 20 minutes. I'm not deleting that. You're leaving it in.
You were giving out about the Dubs talking shite. That is farcical.
That's staying in.
Every game is going to be interesting.
Go on, James.
You are
it's going to be interesting. The spread is only 18. Hang on, no, in fairness.
Don't let him off the hook, T. Keep it in.
delete.
Interesting to see if he plays Clifford. Yeah.
You caught me on the hop there.
He's rumbled. Look at him. He's rattled all. Yeah, you were out yesterday. He's hung over. Look at him.
I wasn't.
No, he's been an A&E. That's where he's been.
The interesting games, right, to get Jimmy out of this hole is not Kerry and Tip. I'm sorry. It's not.
Well, it's
not Dublin and Laois either. It's the Leinster games. Genuinely, we touched on this a couple of weeks ago. Westmeath Loud. Westmeath have underperformed to knock it out of Division 3 after the Celtic Cup win last year. They'll be looking at a big performance against Loud. Loud were they brought it to the last game against Dublin and Croker. It was a bit flat from them, but they've had a big season under Mickey Hart.
Like Longford had their eyes on, I think, the Tailteann Cup. They're away in a warm weather training camp this week. Offaly will fancy their chances against Meath. What are you laughing at?
No, carry on.
Do you never get to go on a warm weather training camp?
No, Jesus, no. I'm missing out on all these warm weather training camps. Carton House.
You got the option to take the money.
Line the pockets. Yeah, look, there is definitely pressure in Meath, and the winners of that game obviously go on to play Louth and Westmeath, who obviously been very vociferous both camps in the last couple of years that they reckon they're the second best team in Leinster. It'll be hard. It'll be interesting to see what team goes out from Colin O'Rourke at the weekend. Obviously had quite a young side, a rookie full back line throughout. Will that be the same full back line? Will Donald Keoghan be back? If Donald Keoghan isn't back, they're in bother. So, Paddy, I'd be with you in saying that is a game worth keeping an eye on at the weekend. It's definitely. It's not on GAA Go, is it? No.
I'll have to go back to you on that.
James, last word to you. What is the game?
If Meath don't win, that is actually a very interesting game, the Meath game. But if they don't win that game,
they're in the Tailteann Cup.
An nightmare year. Like they've already had a bad year, but you would always say, whatever happens in the league, we have the championship. If they lose that game, they're banging the Tailteann Cup, and it's embarrassment. It's humiliation, really. When there was such optimism at the start of the year with Colin Moore, he needs to, however they do it,
the players need to respond.
It's not just Colin Moore.
It's the players who need to respond. It's an easy. It is an easy one to throw Colin Moore, but it's the players who need to respond as much as anything.
I'll give.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But just like the conversation we had, it's O'Rourke and the coaching staff's job to get the best out of them.
Yeah, and hopefully, from a Meath perspective, the last month hasn't been a month of disarray, and they've actually got it together. Another game that's going to be interesting, and we've kind of glossed over it, is Kildare and Wicklow. Kildare in the exact same boat as Meath, and Wicklow are obviously on a high after getting promotion from Division 4. That game is in Cullen Park.
That game, isn't it?
It's in Cullen Park. Yeah, it's a neutral one. Yeah, so James, sorry, I didn't get. What is the game you're most interested in looking at this weekend?
The Meath game would be my most interesting game.
All right, so you're both going Leinster. Jesus, provincials.
The biggest game is obviously
Galway Roscommon.
Yeah,
I know, but you
Armagh, Cavan.
The rest of the games, they're all right. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing going to absolutely.
I'm loving the championship this year. I am very excited for 10 games of football this weekend.
You're in the media now. You're meant to be promoting this. You're not back in your playing days.
Yeah, I'm back in Roscommon against Galway to be a cracker.
Okay.
He's back. We got him
Big
back.
Call. Paddy, last word. The head honcho of Dublin GAA announced that, Dublin GAA announced he was stepping down this week. John Costello, yeah. Just a word on the influence that man has had on football in the capital. Like 30 years he's been involved there. He's been secretary, obviously, for quite a while. I'm going to miss his yearly addresses. I hope we get one last one where he has a cut at the rest of the country. Yeah, John Costello, he's obviously been so important.
Yeah, massively so. The change in how GAA is viewed in Dublin is massive during his tenure. Dublin weren't really that successful. There wasn't really a structure. We weren't making the most of our playing population. And the kind of vision he had with the people around him, the strategy he put in place to make the most, not just the football and hurling as well. You see hurling thriving in underage systems, cool, obviously winning all Ireland club titles. His fingerprints are all over the success of Dublin GAA over the past 2 decades. He's been an absolute cornerstone of it. And we've said it so many times in this pod, when you look at the teams and the counties that are successful, there's alignment between the players, the management team, the underage teams, and the county board. And Bomber was unbelievable for that. It helped that his young lad was on the team as well, because he was always, he's just a great fella, great company. You can see you get a glimpse of a sense of humour and stuff in his annual addresses and stuff like that. But what he's done in the background for Dublin GAA has brought it on to where it is today. He's had a massive impact on it, and I'm sure he'll still be around. Obviously, Cormac is a vital part of the Dublin team as well, so he'll still see him around. But what a servant to Dublin GAA, legend. Yeah,
100%. I think that's a good place to leave the football pod, because Paddy's mic is after going down Moore Street again. Whatever, whatever is going on. Whatever is going on with the mic, we'll have to bring that laptop down.
When did I go halfway through my emotional address to John Costello?
No, just the last 10 seconds. The last 10 seconds, yeah. So
lads. We need the new equipment.
Lads, enjoyed the pod. Yeah, we do.
New laptops and new...
If anyone has a recommendation for Paddy Andrews, he's looking for a new laptop. Lads, enjoyed that this week. Good few laughs along the way. Really looking forward to the live show we have. It's 2 weeks on Thursday. We'll be in the Great Southern Hotel in Killarney. So that's another mention and another reminder to get your tickets before they sell out. It'll probably sell out before the end of the week. And we're announcing our special guest very soon. James O'Donoghue, mind yourself.
You too, Tom.
Slán, Paddy.
Good luck, lads.
Thanks, buddy. See you, lads.